If you are considering a move to Arizona and searching for honest answers to your most searched questions, from the cost of living to the job market, to our weather, to some of our unique aspects like our wildlife, then this video is for you. Today, I'm sharing 5 things that you really need to know before you consider moving to Arizona, including a few questions that no one ever asks, but many should, because moving to a new state can be completely overwhelming, and making the right decision could be the difference between living your dream life and living an absolute nightmare. And these 5 topics are gonna help you make the right decision before you decide to call Arizona home. I'm Shawn Shackelton, your resource for all things real estate in Phoenix and Scottsdale. Now, I know that picking up your entire life and moving it to a brand new state is a big decision and not an easy one. Where will we live? Is it safe? How are the schools? And although when I originally moved to Arizona, it was to Flagstaff to finish school, and my husband, who was not my husband at the time, came shortly after that. But for us to end up in Scottsdale was a complete shock to both of us. And we were worried about some of the same things that I talk to buyers with about every single day. Like, how hot does it really get? We are both originally from Southern California and not on the beach. So it got hot where we live, which allowed us to be somewhat accustomed to the heat. But as it turns out, it is a lot different than the heat here in Scottsdale and Phoenix. We were worried about critters too. Okay, I was freaked out with the thought of living where rattlesnakes lived. I mean, I was scared to death. I did not know how I would survive. And is it safe? We wanted to live in an area where we felt really safe. Now, we didn't have kids at the time that we moved here, so we weren't really looking at schools. But now that we have twins, we are extremely proficient in the whole school system. And with all of that, I would say for the most part, what we were worried about didn't end up being that big of a deal. That being said, I do think that all of these questions are ones that should be asked to at least get more information, because everyone's perception is different. And something that is not a big deal to one person could be an absolute deal breaker for someone else. Now, as I go through all of this, it is impossible for me to answer every single question. And I might even bring up something that you hadn't thought about, which brings up additional questions that you didn't even know you had. And if that's the case, make sure to leave a comment down below and I will answer that question. So first up is our weather, and it is no secret that Arizona gets a lot of sun. In fact, it's usually one of the reasons that brings people to Arizona. They really want more sun. Wherever they live is gray and dark or rainy, and they're just kind of tired of it. And the reality is here, we get over 300 days of sunshine, and we don't get much rain. Now, here's the brutal honesty about our weather. We have about 7 months of fantastic weather, and 5 months that are pretty intense. During these 5 months, the temperatures can be at least 100, and sometimes we'll have stretches of 110 and 115 day after day after day. And our nights don't cool down much. We'll get into the 90s, but sometimes it's 95. That's the lowest through the night. So we don't cool down so much at night that you can turn your air conditioning off and open up your house. Your air conditioning in the summer, in those 5 months, run pretty much 24/7. For those that move here from the really snowy, gray climates, this heat really doesn't seem to bother them. My clients tell me every year when everyone's complaining about the heat, I will take this over the snowy, gray, ice, cold, cold, cold weather every single day. They just don't mind it. But during our summer, when the heat is the most intense, you will hear people say that it feels like you're being put in an oven. Or when you walk outside, you feel like you got hit in the face with a blow dryer. And I'm not gonna lie, kind of feels like that, but it's also very dry, so you don't have to deal with a lot of humidity, which I think makes the summertime feel that much hotter if we also had to deal with the humidity. Then right in the middle of our summer season, we have something called monsoon season. This is something that many people don't ask about, but it's something that everyone should learn about. And if you Google it, you'll see that it's heavy rain and wind. But here in the Phoenix surrounding areas, it's often just a wall of dust that blows all the way across the desert floor and makes everything really, really dirty. You will hear these also called haboobs. And if you are driving in one and it's really bad, you might have to pull over and just wait for it to pass. And depending on where you live in the valley, you will experience more of these than in some other places. Like, I live in North Scottsdale, and although we might see them coming, we don't get that big gigantic wall of dust because I live right at the base of the McDowell Mountains. So those McDowell Mountains kind of buffer us a little bit. So we will get some of the dust, but it is not as intense as if you're living down on that flat valley floor. All in all, these really are just kind of a nuisance. They make everything really dirty, like I said. You will want to go get your car washed as soon as possible. And your backyard and all of your outdoor patio furniture, they're just gonna get super dusty. Now, if we do get rain with these monsoons, it does drop our temperature, which everybody loves. But here's the little caveat to that. It will drop our temperature for an hour, maybe 45 minutes. If we're lucky, it'll be an hour and a half. And then once the rain is over, our temperatures heat back up. And because now we have all that moisture, our humidity also goes up. And when this happens, I kind of use that term oppressive, because that humidity, it just feels like that warm, hot blanket on you. Now, during these times, just to be clear, the humidity can get to like 40 or 50%. And for those of you that live in extremely humid climates, might be looking at me going, "You're crazy, that is not humid," which I have heard, by the way. But for me, it feels really, really humid. So it's just something to know about and be aware of. You need to be careful because trees can get knocked down and branches can break and fall down. You will often see a lot of city workers out kind of removing the trees and the limbs that have fallen down after these big storms. Something else that people don't really ask about and don't really expect, if I'm being honest, is how cold we can get for short periods of time during our winter. Again, for those coming from really, really cold places where you can get to like 0, this is not gonna be cold to you at all. But we can see a week or two during our winter time where our highs get to about 50 and we'll see temperatures during the night below freezing. Again, this is not something that happens all across the valley, but if you're living in a little bit higher elevation in the North Scottsdale, Carefree, Cave Creek area, we will see temperatures below freezing a few times during the winter. And we've also had a few times where we've actually had snow fall and stick for a couple hours. During this time, it's very funny because you'll see all these people flooding up into North Scottsdale so that they can all get their Christmas pictures or holiday pictures with snow on a saguaro. Another one of those things that many people don't think about when it comes to our weather and rain, because we don't get very much of it, is flooding. Now, I only bring this up because depending on where you're looking to buy, we do have flood zones. And there are homes that are built within that flood zone. And it's important to be aware of this because if you're getting a loan on your house, a lender is going to require you to have flood insurance. The seller or the seller's agent will likely have to provide you an elevation certificate for you to provide to your lender so that they can look everything over. Overall, to have flood insurance is just going to cost you a little bit more money when you buy a home. So again, it's something that you need to be aware of. And it is not something that you want to find out once you're in escrow. Now, when I talk about flood zones, the next question that I always get is, well, how many houses actually flood if you guys get that kind of rain? And honestly, I do not know of one house that has flooded due to rainwater. This is something that FEMA has put in place. And unfortunately, you will just have to abide by those rules. And if you don't choose to put your own flood insurance on the home, the lender will put it on there for you, and it's not going to be cheap. I can tell you that there are some places in the North Scottsdale areas that are considered in flood zones right now, and the city of Scottsdale has some plans coming to re-divert some of those washes up there. So some of those homes that are in floodplains right now or in those flood zones will likely come out of those flood zones. When that's going to happen, though, we just don't know. The next one is our traffic. Now, the biggest reason that I have people asking about traffic is because they've read all over the interwebs that our traffic is bad here. But many of the people that I'm talking to are coming from larger cities like Seattle or LA or Chicago, and our traffic here is nothing for them. Now, the reality is that our city has been growing pretty substantially for years. And since 2020, it has grown exponentially. We have seen about a 4% population growth since 2020, where most other places have seen a 1% population growth. And with people comes more traffic. But right now, what's causing a lot of our traffic is all the construction projects that they have going on for our freeways and roads to expand them to make room for all the additional people. On the 101 freeway by my house, they're actually widening that freeway. But unfortunately right now, that means they've got to take down one lane so that they can actually widen it. So it's a mess right now. I agree with everyone that is complaining about it. But I just try to keep thinking about how great it's going to be when they actually open it up. Something else the city of Scottsdale is doing is they're putting in a lot more roundabouts. And if you look at the city of Scottsdale's website, they state that we are a roundabout city first, which means that if a roundabout can be put in instead of a signal, they're going to be putting in a roundabout. They're stating that from the studies they've done, there are less accidents at roundabouts rather than signals. You can also see from their website all the roundabouts that are currently in place and the few that they have coming. Now, safer is better. But in the meantime, as people are getting used to all these roundabouts, which we did not have just a few years ago, driving through them can be a little bit of a challenge right now. One of the other things that really contributes to some of our traffic is all the visitors that we have during those 7 months of beautiful weather. The number of people that come to Arizona during our winter months is huge. This is what we consider our snowbird season. So this could be those people that own second homes here, or those people that come and rent homes here for several months out of the year. They just want to come and be out of wherever they are with the bad weather and come and enjoy our beautiful weather. But with that brings more people and again, more traffic. And when people come to visit, if they're not fully second home owners and kind of know their way around a little bit, they don't know where they're going always. So this does clog up the roads a bit. I have been behind some of those people. I can tell they're looking at their phone at a map, trying to figure out where they're going, and it can be frustrating. But again, I do my best to have as much patience as I can because they just don't know where they're going. The expansions on our freeways is not isolated to the Phoenix area alone. They have also been working on an expansion project on the I-17 that is going north up into Flagstaff as well as south down out of Flagstaff. See, many people that are down in the valley have a second home either in Flagstaff or somewhere around there so that they can enjoy the weather up there and get out of the heat or enjoy the snow in the wintertime. Then we have all the visitors that fly into the Phoenix Sky Harbor Airport and drive up the I-17 on their way to the Grand Canyon. And right now, the I-17 is only 4 lanes, 2 lanes going up and 2 lanes coming back. And when accidents happen on the I-17, which happen more often than I think anyone would like, it completely shuts down that freeway and you get absolutely stuck. My husband and I have actually missed a flight when we lived in Flagstaff because we were stuck on the 17 coming down from Flagstaff trying to get to the airport and there was an accident in front of us. You have nowhere to go. So having this additional lane on both sides of the freeway is going to allow them to block things off and still allow traffic to get through, where right now they have to block things off and just stop traffic dead. Now, if you read anything about our traffic, you're going to read things like people here drive so fast. And I can't say that I have never witnessed anybody driving really fast on our freeways. So the normal everyday driving here does not seem excessively fast to me. Now, if you're coming here from a smaller town, you could feel that everyone here drives really fast. Okay, now the fact that you've made it this far in the video and possibly subscribed to the channel means that you are really considering a move to Arizona. And because of that, we have to talk about the cost of living. Now, for a long time, Arizona was looked at as a very affordable place to live, even when people were coming to Scottsdale or Paradise Valley for that matter, which are more affluent areas in Arizona, found it to be pretty affordable for what you were looking to buy. That level of affordability has changed since 2021, kind of like everywhere else in the country. And some that come here are surprised at the wealth in the state and the number of wealthy and high net worth individuals that choose to call Arizona home. The fact is that Arizona is number 3 in the US for attracting these types of individuals. In this article, they said, Arizona's allure lies in its beneficial tax structures, thriving business environment, and irresistible lifestyle. These fiscal advantages with the beauty of our sun-drenched landscapes and abundant opportunities have made Arizona a magnet for wealth and prosperity. Because of this, we have seen our home prices explode. Many people have sold homes in other areas where it's more expensive to live and come here and paid cash for their homes. And we have seen this happen time and time again over the past few years. When you look at the overall affordability of the state, we are ranked 16th in the US. Our median home prices here in Phoenix right now is around $450,000. Now, when you take a look at this chart again, you will see that we peaked back in May of 2022 at $480,000. And we saw an almost 9% decrease in our median sales price. Then we bottomed out in December, January of 2023, and prices started to increase again. And right now, we are only about 3% off of our peak back in May of 2022. Now, if you're looking to move to Scottsdale, I will tell you, you cannot find a home in those price points. This will show you our median sales price in Scottsdale. And what's interesting about this is what you saw in the last chart. You saw a definite peak in May of 2022 and then a bottoming in December and January. We did not see the same drastic peak and valley here in Scottsdale, which is why it is so important for you to be talking with someone who has this kind of data and knowledge. And our luxury market here is still exploding, despite what the most recent Wall Street Journal article says. And if you would like to dive deeper into how our market is doing, make sure you look at one of the links down below because I will post one of the videos that I've just done talking about all of that specifically. And some of the best news that I ever get to share with buyers is about our property taxes. We are ranked the 10th lowest in property taxes. I will be out with buyers and they will ask me, so what are the taxes on this house? And when I tell them, their jaw almost hits the floor. Let me just give you a couple examples. On a $750,000 single family home, you're going to pay about $2,200 a year. And on a $2 million single family home, you're going to pay about $6,000 a year. Now, there are some exceptions to these, like if the community has a CFD, which is an additional line item on your tax bill, which will make your taxes go up just a little bit, but All in all, that gives you a pretty good idea of what our taxes are. And when I tell people what the taxes are, again, the jaw hits the floor, and then they'll tell me this astronomical amount of money that they're paying for their taxes, like $15,000, $20,000 for the year. So for that, just on your property taxes alone is a huge savings. Now let's talk about the jobs here, because contrary to popular belief, Arizona as a whole, and Phoenix and Scottsdale specifically, are not just for retirees anymore. And our job market is booming. Our overall job landscape has changed pretty drastically since the Great Financial Crisis, when the main employment drivers were tourism, low-paying call center jobs, and construction. Now we are being called the Silicon Desert because of all of the tech jobs coming into the valley, as well as all the manufacturing. And most of the jobs that are coming in are all high-paying jobs. Something that we saw a lot during COVID were companies that made the decision to leave the state that they were to come into Arizona because of our friendlier business practices. And that has really helped and continues to help with all of the job growth. The big company that has been in the news for a while is TSMC. Now, their original plan, they were only going to build one semiconductor plant. But since then, they have decided to expand and plan on building additional. And because of that, and all of the growth in the semiconductor and manufacturing space here, we have all of these additional companies that are moving into the valley that are going to support all of these other semiconductor and manufacturing businesses, which just bring more jobs into the state. Now, this type of job growth is contributing to a few new areas as emerging luxury markets. Places like Peoria are starting to have more and more million-dollar homes pop up every day. Overall, tech is big here, as well as medical, manufacturing, finance, and engineering. These are some of the top drivers for our overall employment here in Arizona. Now for the animals you'll be living around. And remember what I said, I could not imagine myself living anywhere where there are rattlesnakes. I was petrified. And if you've looked up any of the animals that live in the area, you've probably come across things like bobcats and coyotes, snakes and termites, and javelinas, even though you didn't know what that was because you had never seen that word before, Gila monsters and tarantulas, mountain lions, and, oh yeah, scorpions. Here's the thing. Depending on where you live, you might not see any of these animals. These are all going to be more prevalent in certain areas. Unfortunately, places like where I live in North Scottsdale, or areas that are farther out because there is newer construction, so the soil is being churned up. These are all more prevalent in outlying areas. But I do not see these every day, and I have learned how to live with them. I'm very aware of my surroundings. I don't go sticking my hands in bushes or my feet in bushes. If I'm out hiking, I know how to walk. I'm very careful around some bushes. I know the times during the year that I need to be extra careful about certain animals. You just learn your surroundings. But I also pay very close attention to where I am. So can you live here with all those animals? You can. Do you need to be careful? You do. But is it possible? Of course. If I can do it with my absolute irrational fear of snakes, then anybody can do it, in my opinion. Now, if you want to learn more pros and cons about living in Scottsdale, make sure you take a look at this video. As always, I thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.